Hey Jeff, how's it going?
Danny.
How are you? Well, conferences. I guess you had a couple, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I'm still suffering from from the backlog stuff and
I know the feeling.
calls because I've got yeah, we just finishing up a whole release process for this week for about a dozen spec pieces.
Uh-huh.
So I've got that, and then I've got end of year and review crap that I've also goal setting. I'm trying to get to today.
All that kind of fun. Yep, I know that. I know that feeling. Cool. I'm kind of in the middle of that too. Let me see if I can find our notes from last time. I think we're just kind of into uh specs or writing area, but I was just gonna kind of skim through use today and skim through if there was like kind of open items to track down, but let me get some notes ready for today too. I can share in a second. See if we get anybody else joining. I know there's even for us, there's a lot of people that are out this week too. Like,
Oh, really? Well, I will certainly be turning into a pumpkin as of next week,
yeah,
next week. So I mean, I can be I'll be here next Thursday, but after that, I'm out for the year.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm starting to see that kind of stuff for people that just add it on and so forth.
Yeah.
All good though. Let's see here. All right, let's see. Today's 11:30. Okay, let me just share my screen. We'll give a few minutes, see if we got a few other folks joining. And I'm just on my laptop today, so it's going to be hard to see when people join, but let me share. Let's see here, the OneNote. Let me know if you can see that.
Yep.
Okay, oh, go back up. All right, so I was just pulling some stuff over. Let me just kind of skip through the last stuff. I think we did meet once, Jeff, when you were out. We I think this was what it was, 11:16. I think you were at Supercomputer or something. Um, and I think just to give a pass down, we just kind of like these were the notes. There was some questions about like some of the other specs, and I kind of mentioned that you and I had talked about, you know, kind of the progression. Once we set it, it'll go to probably manageability and then other ones. But I think Shruti had found some examples of some other specs that kind of are related, but not exactly. This one in and around from the which one was it from? NVMe. There's like one specific one for NVMe drives, but it was it was more for like average power. It's more for like how they define their spec for how they write down average power, you know, rather than an actual kind of live telemetry kind of thing. And I think that's it. So then if I go back, trying to see if there was some open or action items. I probably still have a few here. So let me see. Verify CXL attached TIMs require any enabling. Um, I think this is basically for telemetry. I should probably clarify. I haven't checked in on that yet. And then, do you know if there's any OCP groups um, related to sort of CXL, or I mean, does this just fall into sort of storage?
Uh,
I can't think of any that are specific to that IO, but
Not specific, but I mean, we've got works. I don't know if it's a work stream but I mean, we've got like the hardware manageability stuff. We're getting CXL things there, but
getting in there too. Okay.
but I mean, but you're already covered there. So it's like, yeah, I don't think there's a
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
storage guys. I mean, this and it's obviously they're handling it in systems too, but I think that's
Okay.
it should be the people we're talking to already.
Got it. Okay. So I think that was it. Let me see. Oh, did I miss anything else? And then there was the first specs, DC metric. That was sort of their stuff. They're not there yet. I think that was it. So I think we're kind of to just this spec template. This was the one I probably won't. This probably won't show up. I think I'm just sharing a thing. But so we have some of this, the open compute spec. Probably I guess I can probably start trying to dump. I know we had a couple of good conversations here and here. Some of these stuff into that spec, or maybe I guess the easiest way is the Google Doc, right? Yep, then it is one. Okay. Okay. Have you done this, Jeff, where it like sets up so we all just are able to edit it?
I have, and I'll tell you, it's kind of a, well, for initial work, it's okay. But as we want to actually review stuff, it becomes kind of problematic. But so OCP in general is trying to move to GitHub.
Oh, that's right. We want to go to our Git thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would suggest that we start there and just do this in Markdown, and that makes it easier for everyone.
Start on GitHub. Okay. And is there like a start on GitHub kind of like a primer somewhere out there?
There is. I'm trying to remember where it is.
Yeah. I thought I saw.
But I think we will need to request the admins to create us a repository.
So that's just to Kevin then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me shoot him a note just now. And before I forget, you're right. I think that we did discuss this stuff. Okay. So GitHub repository.
Although does sustainability have one already? Because I don't know if we really
That's a good question. Deb, do you know, I think you were going through some of this as well, right?
Yeah, I have on my to-do list to get this figured out.
Get this figured out. Okay, so we're all in the same page. I don't feel so bad.
I keep moving it out month at a time, but it is on my December to figure out list.
Okay, I'm gonna
So
shoot.
yeah, maybe if we do it together.
I'll shoot Kevin a note and I'll copy you, Deb, and I'll spare everybody else the spam. But we'll just say here, Deb and I. I'll just say I'm looking.
Is this for the GitHub?
Yes.
For OCP sustainability? Okay,
Yeah,
I can find out that they don't have one set up.
Okay. I would think that one for sustainability overall is probably sufficient, because
I agree, Jeff.
I don't think we're going to have, I mean, we're not going to have hundreds of documents spitting out of all the different work, all these different streams. So, and for users, it'll certainly be easier to make, because it's probably how many documents is the sustainability group going to throw out? I mean, it's certainly probably in the dozens, not in the hundreds or thousands. So the reason to have separate repos is that you get too much activity going on and people kind of lose track, or they get overwhelmed with all the change notifications and things like that. But it means you have to go find things. So I mean, I think what do we think this work group? Are we providing? Is it one document? Maybe a document. Maybe there's a spec or a white paper. But I mean,
yeah.
count on one hand the number of docs that we would be producing. So
yeah, exactly. I think so.
Worst case, we have our own folder.
Yeah. Yeah. I shot Kevin a note. So let me see.
Yeah. So we can just be there, and as long as we have access, we can figure it out. We can certainly start creating stuff, and then if we need to, we can move it into a folder. But that allows us to at least to start doing the text work, and we can do the initial document creation stuff there.
Okay. Cool. Okay. It sounds like
was that Danny? Danny, did you reach out to Kevin?
I just literally just did while we were all talking. I just shot him a quick email.
Oh, okay.
So knowing Kevin, it'll probably take him about a minute to respond. He's so quick. If he's around his computer, man, he's quick. But yeah, I sent him a note. So we'll see if there's one for all sustainability or just us. And then I also asked him if he has some kind of intro presentation so we could get started. Okay. Cool. So let me see. We can kind of just scan back so I think that's really the big next thing or the next big hurdle. But is there any other things anybody can think? I mean, we kind of went around and went through quite a bit of the basics that if we get this started, I can just start putting it as a framework into the spec. But is there anything else anybody can think of? I'm trying to think if I had anything. We went through the
Hey,
devices.
sorry to interrupt. I don't know if hey, sorry to interrupt, Danny. I don't know if you did like an introduction thing or if Sarayu is not a new member today. But I thought, we could just quickly
Sure.
do an intro and
that'd be good.
also
Yeah.
welcome her in.
Sure, you want to go ahead and do an intro?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Shruti. I just tried out to joining in and I was successful the first try. So thank you so much. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarayu Achar, and I am actually representing Solidigm from the sustainability perspective. More so, I'm very new to this topic, and I've had this opportunity to, meet Shruti in a one-on-one, and I'm honestly coming up to speed with this whole sustainability work group. And trying the end goal is trying to see, what is the work going on, what are the different work streams, and how sustainability requirements rather can be gathered and eventually defined for a platform or product. And since I'm coming from the Solidigm side, it's more for the SSDs. Want to see where the standard is going, and what all vendors are going to be doing in order to report different metrics. So and Shruti suggested that this work stream is going to be a very good start for me. The power telemetry, that work is going on here. And I was just quickly reading your notes while all of you were talking, and looks like you are in the spec definition phase. So I think it's a good time for me to join in and listen in and see what's, what you're looking at. Most likely you're looking at an overall platform, right? Point of view. And so, yeah. So thanks, Shruti, for letting me introduce myself.
If I could jump in,
Yeah.
I'd like to invite you also to join our carbon modeling work stream.
Yes. Okay.
Meets on Tuesdays. Because
Sorry, Deb, I
there's
didn't mean to ignore your work stream.
I understand. I just
No, actually, she wanted me to join multiple work streams. So
I was gonna say,
yeah. But just to kind of put in context, when your carbon, you have the carbon that in the manufacture of the equipment, and then the carbon from the usage of the equipment. So here we're going to be looking at usage, and that other work stream we're looking both at the the manufacturing side, but also how you go from when you measure your electricity, how then operationally, how you then take that to a carbon number. So I just think you'll find a lot of interesting things happening.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, we can talk later, but if you think somebody from the supply chain, when it comes to manufacturing, somebody from the supply chain side, or somebody who's my role, I forgot to mention it, is I'm more of a strategic planner for long-term Solidigm platforms. So if you could suggest certain, subject matter experts who you'd prefer in this call, I would be happy to reach out to them internally in Solidigm and bring them into.
yeah, I think it. Oh, go ahead. Deb.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say there's definitely a few different sustainability work groups within that project. Yeah, definitely welcome. And thanks, Rudy, for catching it. Kind of harder for me to see. I missed the participants that joined, so thanks. Yeah, you're right. We're kind of at step one of now going to spec mode. We kind of had some brainstorming and throughout some of the basics. We want to start with the compute server as sort of the first kind of block, if you will, to go through and define power telemetry specs, expectations on accuracy, sample rate, and what gets measured and how, some kind of high level start there.
Mhm.
And then we think we'll probably grow a little bit beyond that to rack and beyond as we feed into some of the other, there is another work group on the data center metrics. And so the end goal is to make sure that we eventually have prescribed everything that needs to get collected to feed into that metric as well, right? So that we're consistent across these different work groups. But yeah, welcome. And
Thank you.
and certainly too, if you want to invite anybody else that you know from your areas, I mean, your company or your peers, like, on things like that, like if there is telemetry capability or lack thereof or something, if there's gaps, those are always,
Mhm.
good to note if we kind of, we can call them out for future things. But yeah,
Okay, I definitely will
great.
look at who the telemetry rep is and try to invite them.
Okay. So I think, let me see, going back to the compute side, I don't know, I think just so far as pairing off with the profiles and things, I think we've got most of it kind of, I think we're trying to think if there's anything else to discuss. We've kind of gone through any other leveling before we start putting it in, like, trying to fit it into a spec form. Do we, and then I guess, Jeff, how do we, is that, I mean, the profile that you had mentioned for power, is that part of the manageability? Like, is that part of a spec already? Or is that, I don't know, too low level for the spec, like the actual profiles that are already set up?
It's not part of a spec, but I mean, the profile is a freestanding thing. It's, I mean, as a document.
Right.
So I wouldn't call it a spec, but it's more of the checklist of support.
Right. So do we, I guess we can, in this spec, we can cross-reference into the manageability one, but I mean, is there, yeah, I guess, what do we want to document so far as like redfish profiles and fields and things like that? Is that just like a section of our spec, or do we just reference the other one, or?
I think it's the reverse. I think in a sustainability profile that we need to create, and that's a larger work group thing, but but it should reference, hey, I'm placing these requirements in this profile for power readings from these types of devices, and I would reference this document. I would reference our spec here in that profile.
Okay. And that would be the manageability spec. What's the other spec? How should I refer to it here?
No, I mean your document, your spec. I mean reference from the so those aren't, and those aren't existing profiles. They are a work in progress.
Got it. Okay.
So Jeff, the sustainability profiles would be different from the manageability profiles, right? Is that understanding correct?
They're the same type of document, if that's your question. The manageability group is creating profiles that are general purpose across all of manageability. So it's going to say, like, you have to have account passwords, and you have to have make, model, and serial number on stuff. What I'm expecting is that sustainability will contribute a profile that says, here is the data that we need to have exposed from OCP products to support the sustainability goals. And so that profile would be restricted to just really talking about power, energy, and probably some location data. And so in that profile, I think, like, hey, you got to have power. It's got to have this kind of accuracy. It's got to be measured at this sampling rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those entries in that profile would reference the power, the output of the power telemetry work group.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, Danny, it seems like that very thing is the format or the spec in which we want to place this group's work,
Yes.
Okay.
right?
Okay. And so just in our spec, like you said, we'll just call out, here's where you cite that the accuracy is this and so forth. Or here's where, yeah, all the fields, etc. Okay. Is there any, I'm trying to think. You said it's like work in progress. It seemed like it was pretty well formed though. You were saying I mean, is it a profile for sustainability or a profile for power telemetry already or power?
I think it's I think it's a profile for sustainability because
Okay.
I don't want to have 100 profiles.
Right. I was gonna say you manageability and then power and then some
Yeah. So,
environmental.
because I think what we want to be able to hand to people is that, hey, you know, and I think it will also depend. We'll also have to see how big it is when it gets done,
Yeah.
and how much overlap there is.
Okay.
Because you know what I would think that we might want to get to eventually is to say, you know, hey, if you're going to get the OCP, you know, stamp of approval, you know, not only do you have to have these manageability requirements, but among those are manageability requirements specifically to support sustainability efforts. And,
Yeah.
and I don't know if we will, you know, we'll see what the end result of this is, but I kind of suspect that we're going to say, you know, that it would be good for us to say that everybody has to meet those sustainability things, right? So it's, but we'll see. Does that, you know, do you, at the end of the day, do you have, you know, do I have here's a profile for basic manageability of a product from as OCP declares it, and do I have a separate profile that says, do you meet OCP's, you know, sustainability reporting requirements as a separate, you know, as a separate check mark?
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I think that will probably depend on how complicated our requirements get.
okay. And I'm trying to think too for this first release of spec. I mean, we've kind of talked about everything that we want to measure and how and requirements and then the protocol. There's well, I guess it's all in the I don't know if it's in the data center metrics, but so far as like how often that needs to be sort of read and aggregated and stuff. I don't know. Do you guys think that's in scope for this as well? For instance, what's collecting it? What's storing it? If anything, right? Is this real time? Is it stored? Is it reported? Any thoughts on that from this group?
I would think if we are sort of laying guidelines for how to measure power for the devices, then that covers how often it is measured also, like the rate.
Measured by
Like-
the platform, but then something else, like something still needs to be reading all this out of Redfish, right? I mean, there's only so much that's going to be stored on the BMC.
Oh, you're talking about how often it is being read or consumed.
Yeah, well, actually, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, there's sort of two. There's sort of like the BMC is going to have, you know, some buffer, if you will, right? Of telemetry, you know, of the last, you know, values, right? I'll just say last power values for each component. And then also something needs to, you know, some other part of the data center manager needs to be reading this. Data center manager, load balancer, something, right?
Well, and not just reading it, but also storing in a database.
Yeah, it's like, do we want to specify like, yeah, you got to go like, I don't know, put it somewhere or roll it up or something, right?
Well, regulation is going to, you know, is going to put people in the place where they will understand that they want
What they need to,
you know,
okay.
if you look at like, you know, at the gross data center level, you know,
Mhm.
probably at least hourly, they'll want to collect the power, store it for a whole year so they can report on it for that year, aggregate it. They don't, it would be up to them if they want to just keep all the hourly numbers or if they, just
Okay.
keep aggregating.
Do, I don't know, and I don't know if, again, now we're kind of like the gray line between us and manageability, like, I guess, do we need to specify how
I
much
don't
of
think
these past
so.
values the BMC needs to hold though?
Oh,
Because I agree, from the other end, it's going to be like, I think we'll get the data center metrics or any regulations will kind of guide whatever they need to do with the end
exactly.
data. And then the in between is sort of like, okay, all this stuff is coming out of the sensors and the BMC is pulling it and reading it, but it'll be lost if it's not read out eventually or roll over or some.
Right.
I guess that's the other thing, right? If it's energy, if we're reporting energy, or does the BMC convert to power?
So what is the, what are we giving the BMC? Is it joules
Yeah,
or?
we were thinking of having devices report out joules.
Okay.
But
So it
again,
would, so at the data center level, they'll be wanting to tuck in watt hours.
right,
But
exactly.
again, how much of that translation would be just the job of software, right? Versus, what we want to push to hardware.
Yeah, but we'd need to make sure hardware has those clocks to be able to do the
Yeah, but what are BMCs doing
timestamp.
now?
That's what, yeah, I don't know. I think,
Good to know.
yeah, I'm trying to think if I mean, if we have devices reporting joules and then it eventually needs to be, is it every time it's read by the BMC, then it's reset?
We'd have to look at how the BMCs work today. That would be my suggestion, right? Because
So yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I guess I'll
yeah,
have
I
to,
don't know either. We would want to be as undisruptive as possible.
right, yeah.
Take what's there now and basically just, not have to wait a few years,
Yeah,
a
no
decade
kidding.
till the new thing is ubiquitous, right?
Okay,
Would
let
be
me, that's a good point.
So
I
we
can,
are thinking,
Mhm.
sorry, Daniel, let you finish.
I was just gonna kind of I can take an action item for myself, and I was gonna see if others could do the same just on exactly what Deb said. Like, what's kind of programmed today? What's today's best practice? Joules versus power. Is the BMC, reading joules from devices and converting to power, or is it just receiving power values from its sensors?
right.
Okay. We just, one step back, we do think that we want to include guidelines for how BMC is reading and storing this within this spec.
Mhm.
Yeah, again, my advice would be rather than doing something new, find out what they're doing today. I mean, doesn't Open Compute have a BMC spec or, guidelines or whatever? Find out what there is today and use it. There's already data center managers out there that are talking
Yeah.
to BMCs and, this is not a new concept, right? So rather, if we say something new, driving it into the industry, right, and having it be ubiquitous is a many
Right.
year process versus
Yeah.
like just see what they're doing today, and we can, put that, say, we're assuming for a typical BMC, here's how the collecting is happening. It's
Mhm. Okay. Okay. I can look to see what we do. I'm not sure. Yeah, and I need to ask to see, like, Is there a comment? This is maybe a second one, but I'll kind of do this for me internally and maybe ask around, like, is there a template, I should say BMC, where kind of like, I don't know, base code, code base that already does this, and how?
Yeah, see, I didn't even know BMCs use firmware, so you're ahead of me on that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. What other items like that? Those are kind of good ones to track down before we write this up.
Yeah, so and I can probably answer some of that because most of that power is coming, most of that information is coming from the power supplies and the PM bus specifications. So they're getting as energy accumulation, which I'm assuming is in joules, but they are generally reporting power only today. And so
you think it's joules on the you think it's joules as the value on the PM bus, and then the BMC is what's converting to watts?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought too.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and that data is generally then thrown away. It's reported only as power, but so that's been sort of my unraveling of this is don't throw that away. Go ahead and report that accumulated energy, because that's we want that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly. Yeah.
And that was all kind of like really good news because it's not asking for a whole bunch of new stuff. It's just you have the data. Just can you present that as well? Because there is value to that was not perceived as valuable in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to understand who would find the value
In joules?
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
It's energy versus rate, right? So I mean, this is my odometer versus speedometer analogy. All of these devices today report speedometers because power measurements were critical for making sure that I didn't run outside of my available power envelope, either by breaker or by thermal load. So that's everybody was concerned about the speedometer. How much power am I consuming at this moment? The how much energy have I, how much money have I spent on energy in the last 24 hours was not the concern of all the firmware.
Right.
Oh,
and for people looking to be like, how much energy did it take to do this task, right? Or
that just did not come up.
Right.
But if I watch my odometer, I can click that, click my trip meter, when I start the job, and when I finish the job, I can look at that trip meter, and it doesn't matter how long that takes, and also I don't have to sample it because I can just look at the start and the end, and I can say, okay, now I know how much how much I've used.
2 years ago, it was going in the exact opposite direction.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess these are very different use cases than I've been thinking about. The use cases I am familiar with, like I would say if we can center around watt hours, right? Because that's what the energy coming into the facility is coming in, as on that, right?
So joules and watt hours are the same. It's just it's orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
I'm not.
By the time we get to reporting this, it'll be in watt hours, or maybe even kilowatt hours.
Yeah. All right. So as long as that's where we're going, and nobody's wasting storage or so many bits of precision that is not needed, right? Makes people understand when they design things, but especially hardware. But we're sustainability. We don't want the databases to have too many digits of precision, right? Because that costs has an environmental cost too, right? We want it to be very efficient.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay. that was one. Let's see, what's another one? Anything else? I'm trying to think if there was other fundamentals.
Oh, so I'm looking here. So Open BMC is not
there's
under
some-
Open Compute. It's
No.
something.
It's a Linux.
Yeah.
It's
This I did not know. I would look at what Open BMC does as a starting point. So we don't have an analogous thing in OCP.
No,
Have a
no,
BMC spec.
it's effectively pointing to OpenBMC as one of the.
Yeah, so that would be my advice, Danny, is see what Open
Yeah.
BMC says.
Yeah, it's like it's separate from OCP, but I think it's referred to but referred to by OCP.
I mean, it's got the word open in there. Shouldn't it be hard?
Yeah, everybody's open now.
I guess that too. That too.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's correct. Yeah, that's what I was hoping to go, but you're right. That is important to note it's different. But if they just point to it, then it's implicit almost. Let's see what else. So the BMC, the recording, I'm trying to think what else. We talked about all the components and devices. We talked about
Well, I'm
thermals. We
pretty
talked
comfortable
about.
now. I think
Oops, say again. Sorry.
I was comfortable with that now too.
Oh, you're probably getting
Oh, yeah. I think it's
background
background.
noise. Oh, ominous.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I can't think of any other ones. I was just searching around. Just the platform. I guess, and you said that there is a spec in OCP for the PM bus requirements? Is that part of like DC MHS or? Oop, you still there, Jeff?
I'm sorry, say again?
Do you know if the PM bus requirements are already part of like DC MHS or something?
I don't know if they'll rise to that because DCMHS will probably be specking out, you know, the you have to have I2C buses and stuff, but you know, where that is that
What you connect it
power
to and
supply, yeah. I don't know, but well, I don't know, but I also don't know if we need to worry about it because there is really no other alternative.
yeah, I was gonna say pretty much saying you must have it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you don't have that, then you know you're on your own, and you'll certainly be out in your you'll be in your own little boat.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty safe bet that like you know that we could make reference to those things and that should not be a surprise to anyone.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. I was just gonna say maybe I guess I'll look through there and see, and then we would just reference that.
Yeah, it may not even be in MHS. It may just be in server. You know that work group that they may just have a requirement of using PM bus monitored supplies.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it could have landed within that because that's what connects up to the power supply, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, actually, you know what? It may because there are it may actually maybe it may be rack and power because they may be just specifying that as for OCP power supplies.
Oh.
But again, I think we're safe at just reference.
Yeah. I'm mostly just thinking of all the other little links that we want to reference to and stuff. BMC, that I can't think of anything else. Okay. All right. I think I mean, that's all I can think to brainstorm until we get kind of our GitHub stuff set up, and if Kevin sends anything along, I can send it to you guys. I figured I'd shoot him a note first. Haven't seen anything from him yet. So I think that's it. And then I can just put like a template, and then we can kind of edit it together and then just start kind of going that way. Unless there's anything else. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just on the lines of, what you were just mentioning as what we need to do next.
Mhm.
So I know in our notes, we have a description of, we probably want to give guidelines about sampling rate, etc. Can we sort of start off a list of all the fields that are, going to have a guideline?
Mhm.
Just, as a first step to start building that spec and profile.
Meaning fields, meaning like devices that which we're measuring power on.
No, not devices. Like for a particular device, what are all the fields that we are going to give guideline? Like for example, sample
got it.
rate is one.
Yeah. So sort of like per device, what are the mandatory fields, in the redfish profile? And then is there, I guess, or is there optional ones, right? But I guess, I think you already have all these, but so for each one, and I don't know if you already have this. Is it easier to go through the redfish thing, or we can just kind of go through it? But there's sort of the, I forgot what you called it, Jeff, but the sort of characteristics. There's a whole bunch of these things so far as like the name and device type and those kind of fields, right?
Yeah.
How do you call those again? I forgot the wording.
Properties.
Properties. Okay. So there's the property field. And on these, is there some that are specific to power?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where we do things like saying what units power is reported, that kind of thing, or joules or something like that. Okay. So there's sort of a field that says like if it's joules or watts, right?
Well, those are already defined as data around all the properties. So every property already has a units assigned to it. So you'll see in the redfish spec you'll see power watts, you'll see energy in kilowatt hours.
Got it.
It's that kind of stuff. So under the covers, there's also then sensor metadata for things like accuracy, min-max values, sampling rate, that kind of stuff, and that will be kind of independent.
Right.
Now we can make those we can make those type specific. So we can say, for a power measurement, you have to have this level of accuracy, but for an energy measurement, it can be this level of accuracy. We can those can be different.
Okay. Let me see. So maybe we can do a little bit. I think this is kind of what you're thinking, Shruti.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. So just to confirm, for each measurement, does each measurement have an value, unit, accuracy, and these three? Should I think of it like that? Like each measurement has these three?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be, so for each, so the sensor property field will have, so we want to call out, I guess, like you said, the units, right? And then accuracy, min value, max value, they'll call those out. And then is it the sample does it have the sample period or rate? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there anything that defines like when it rolls over, like the max? I mean, that's just the max value, then it's assumed it rolls over, or how does that work?
there's a reset time, so the fields can be sufficiently large. So I mean, the only thing that's a rollover possibility is energy counters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a reset time, which I don't know if it specs in there that's a rollover time, but I mean, effectively that would be the same thing. Let me take a note on that, because that may be good to add for us to add to the description, because some of these counters can be reset by the customer or can be reset at reboot time, and so that's called out as to when that reset, when did that happen. And if you actually get a rollover, it would be good for that to effectively, because it's effectively the same thing.
Right. Okay, I'll take a little action item for you there. And then let me see here, units accuracy, and then of course there's the I mean, there's the basics of like you said, and those are just in the, like, the name, the data manufacturer, all that doesn't keep getting thrown, right? That just gets, I kind of think about it as like there's the stuff that gets stored once and there's stuff that's like
Right.
real time.
Right.
And is that properties versus like data, or how would you classify?
Well, I mean, property is just the term for any piece of data as it gets spec'd out. So it's, we have, a power in watts is a property. And so, energy is a property, location and et cetera, et cetera. And then within those measurements, there's an underlying sensor that is providing that data. And so all of the things that you have listed here as these bullets, those are effectively properties of a sensor.
Got it.
So it's kind of drilling into the sort of, deeper and deeper into the data model.
But what's actually put on PM bus? Is it only the sensor value and a timestamp, or?
Well, all that stuff is actually retrievable via PM bus, but I mean, in terms of what gets, it's different commands to retrieve different data, right? So yeah, when you ask for the energy consumption, you're just getting the consumption value. You're not getting all of that, all of that rest of that stuff. And timestamps is you generating that on your own.
You're right. I probably should say this better. It's more like what sensor data is pulled by BMC onto PM bus every sample, right? And that's where it would just pull, like you said, energy and then maybe a timestamp or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's basically the thing that's sort of continuously running.
Right.
Okay. And then the rest of this is just sort of like pulled once at boot.
Yeah. And it's not retrievable. So you can, yeah. So it's exposed so that the client can come ask for that. So you can sniff out what are the accuracies of this thing. And, that gets you all the interoperability to find out, what does all this data mean to me, right? And how do I normalize it if I need to?
And that is, I mean, that's stored in BMC. Well, it's BMC firmware goes to like a lookup table somewhere for the stuff, right?
I mean, don't care. It's data exposed and provided by the BMC. How he keeps it, stores it, figures it out from PM bus, I don't care.
Got it. Okay. I'm trying to think, do we have any responsibility to say like, okay, power values must be, I guess, as long as, same thing, don't care, as long as you provide the stuff that we're saying.
Right. I mean, I think our job is two things. Is number one is to say what data elements, what properties do I need the devices to emit so that I can pull it. And that's going to fall into the two categories of static data that I'm using for, effectively for discovery and for comparison purposes.
Right.
And then secondly, the kind of that runtime data, the actual sensor data itself. And so that's the first thing we would want to spec. And then secondly is okay, well, I want you, I have to be able to determine accuracy and min and max values. Do we have specifications to that? I can read that you're providing me an accuracy of plus or minus 10% on energy. Is that, but is that acceptable to us?
Right. Yeah.
Is
Okay.
timestamp not stored with the sensor data?
It's made of it's a don't care. It is retrievable from the system, on demand. How the BMC stores it or fetches it, implementation detail that we don't need to care about.
Okay, this is the timestamp of the measurement, right?
Yeah.
This
Here?
is
Yeah.
when the sensor data was captured. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and generally how that's operated is the BMC is retrieving energy, is retrieving energy counters, and is using the timestamps in its own internal clock to calculate power, effectively rate, based on the change in energy values. So I looked at this 1 second ago, and I've used 5 joules of energy from the it was 315, now it's 320. Therefore, I've used 5 joules in this last second. Therefore, I'm running at 5 watts.
Mm-hmm.
Is my power rate.
Mm-hmm.
And if I sit there for an hour, I will have consumed 5 watt hours.
Right. So, right? Anything else?
5
Okay.
times 60 times 60 joules.
Yeah.
Then one more question then. So in the way we described it right now, so the timestamp isn't really being stored. Does the BMCE reading it zero the counters? Is that a reset signal for the counter? Or basically reset signal for the stored sensor data?
So we have so storing this data is a different question. The first thing is to get all that stuff together, right? So I would need energy, I need a timestamp. The who is storing any of this any of these other than the current value is a separate question, and that's we should certainly get into that, but this is where we need to be very careful, because if we start requiring devices to maintain local storage, we're creating a lot of potential effort.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, yeah, I agree. Is there any issue with saying, okay, if BMC reads energy, read the, and then that's the protocol, is that every time it's read, it's reset. And so there doesn't have to be any sensor storing of anything.
Right, and that's the beauty of the energy readings. As long as you have a free running counter, just like your electric meter on your house, if I want to see what my consumption is every day, I can go out there every day at noon and and look at the meter, and I can create that graph, because I can do my delta subtraction to say, well, okay, well, it was it's gone up 45 kilowatts or 45 kilowatt hours. Well, that's a lot. I've gone up 1.3 kilowatt hours since yesterday, so there we go. I've used 1.3 kilowatts, and I can do that every day for a month. And if I care about it every hour, well, then I go out there every hour and look at it, and I can make all that data can be can be utilized with no loss, right? So as long as I'm getting it at the rate that I care about, the device didn't have to do anything. It just has to respond to the requests.
But won't you be reporting it, say, I don't know, I mean, eventually, don't you want it at some sort of if I can use the word annual level, or I don't know, the device life this is how much power was used. I'm trying
Right.
to
Yeah, you can do
understand
that.
when you're going, I mean, how this is going to be used for reporting um, and you know, how it's going to be beneficial from the sustainability perspective, as in, will customers say this is what I want, or I mean, what is the use? How can you maybe because I'm new, I wanted to understand the use case or how it's going to be eventually.
So, you know, yeah, so I mean, there's kind of two parts to this, right? There's an absolute value of how much energy is this device consuming.
Mhm.
So I can, you know, so I can compare that over time. I can also, and then, right, and so the first part of the sustainability is, you know, figure out who the, you know, where's all this energy going. So that's the first part, and then I can use that data then as comparison to say, well, device X versus device Y is, you know, is consuming 30% more data over the same time periods. So I have that, and then obviously then, you know, I take some action or I start performing you know, additional steps to increase my efficiency, and then I use that same energy data, you know, over the next period to say, hey, look, I'm 20% better than I was in the previous period because I've taken some action.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I mean, even the first steps in sustainability, just even how much are we consuming?
Right. That's, yeah. Until you know where all this stuff is going, it doesn't do us any good, right? So, but this is the crawl phase of all of this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's a real thing, right? Like a lot of these places, I'm not sure, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty invisible. You know, especially when the data center is being, you know, paid, you know, the energy consumption goes to the data center bill, you know, to the you know, to the facility guy that just pays the electric bill.
Right. It's just all
Yeah.
bundled into that, and they're like, how did it wind up to this big number, right?
Right. You know, the fact that you've got like a dozen machines that are, you know, sitting there rendering flying toasters for no good reason 24/7 doesn't come out until somebody goes like, wait a minute, why is machine 75 sitting there burning, you know, 3 kilowatts every hour where every other machine around it is not.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can't point to the bad actors until we can measure it, and we can't show improvement, which is going to be the business outcome stuff that is going to drive all of this stuff. You know, if we don't have the baselines, right, then to be able to have the comparisons.
Exactly. Cool. Okay. Any other last second thing? No, we're at the top of the hour, and I do have a hard stop today.
Yep, same here.
Okay. All right. I will keep on, Kevin, and see if we can figure out this the chat for we can or the GitHub, so we can kind of pull it all together, and then I'll shoot you guys an email once we get that all settled up. I think that's our next step. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you
All
next
right.
week.
Thanks. Y'all have a good week.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
folks.